Hey everyone, it is your friend Joseph Craven, returning this Friday, September 7th. I had to look up the date once again because I never seem to remember what day it is. This is the Fast Breakup 40 Minutes of Hell. I'm here to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the world of basketball. Obviously, still a quiet season, it being only September, but hey, NBA 2K19's coming out in just a few days. And not only that, but then we're going to start into preseason ball. Before you even know it, we're going to be in the season once again. So some of the headlines that have been going around as of late are not overly, impressive to discuss. So this isn't exactly going to be a super long episode, I fear. But this is an episode that I kind of want to get into anyway because I was thinking and brainstorming about something that happened this week. And it got me really considering, and I want to take a deeper dive into kind of a what-if scenario, all right? And that what-if scenario is, well, what if LeBron hadn't gone to LA and had gone to Philly? Okay, well, let's take a step backwards here. There's a couple things that have happened lately that kind of warrant this entire, conversation. One of them being that LeBron James in an interview, mentioned some of the teams he thought were title contenders and some of the best teams in the league going into this next season. And he says, still the Warriors are on top. And there's going to be a lot of people reading way too deeply into his comments. There already are. But it makes sense what he's saying because he's smart, okay? LeBron James is one of the smartest athletes maybe ever. It's really impressive to see how far he pushes himself mentally to get better in all situations, mentally to understand the game better, to understand, the way the world works, the way the league works. The man could go on to be NBA commissioner in the future, and I wouldn't even bat an eye at that. It just makes sense. So he made this comment about, the Warriors being the clear favorites, and that's just because he's smart enough to know, hey, they just won the title, so they're probably, you got to call them the favorites. It's respect to those that won the title. That's just what it comes down to. That's all it comes down to. There's going to be a lot of people that make a whole mess out of his statements because it's like, oh my gosh, he's betraying LA by not saying the Lakers are, title contenders. That's not what he's saying at all. He's saying, hey, look, there's a bunch of good teams out there, and I'm trying to pay respect. And I'm also paying respect to the champs because they beat me in the finals. There's a lot of people just love drama. That's all it is. It's why we're talking about LeBron James on a September Friday. I mean, it's dumb. I hate it. I hate talking about it. But that's the scenario that we've got right now because there's not a whole lot else going on. But the more important thing that happened is that, there's a lot of off-season pickup ball that it gets thrown up on social media these days. And I love this because we didn't ever see this. We never saw players in the off season for most of our lives get together and just kind of hang out and play ball just for fun, just doing ridiculous things. We see that a lot now. We get to see, Kevin Durant going, who's the guy? Chris Brinkley? I think his name's Chris Brinkley. He's the, I'm going to look him up real quick. No, it's not Chris. I forget. Anyway. There's the guy, he's an NBA trainer, Brickley, that's it, Chris Brickley, jeez. So Chris Brickley is an NBA trainer, and he runs a gym, and all these NBA stars love to come out to his gym and do workouts during the off season, but then also just play pickup games against each other. And it's really cool to watch, and one of the things that happened lately, I don't think this was at Brickley's gym, it might have been, it might not have been, but Ben Simmons and LeBron James ended up teaming up with each other and playing just this absurd pickup game with each other. I mean, it was hilarious to watch. It really was, because they just, were throwing alley-oops all the time. They were just, I don't know, it was really, really cool to watch that. And it got me thinking about, well, what would a Philly team with LeBron James looked like? And in particular, I'm asking this question not because I'm like, well, did it make the most sense for him to go to LA? All that sort of stuff. It made me ask two questions. Like, does he fit better with the Philly roster? Or the other question being, what's his motivation at this point in his career? He's won titles. He has established himself as the best player in the world. I don't think there's anyone that's going to argue about that. He just came off of his best individual postseason run. And then he opens up the, I Promise Academy. And, I mean, it's just killing it in all areas of life. So why LA? Because let's look at the rosters real quick. You look at the Los Angeles Lakers, and you see guys like Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma. That's the three-headed youth attack there. You got the flashy passing point guard in Lonzo. You got Brandon Ingram, the lengthy wing player who's kind of coming into his own. You've got Kyle Kuzma, who exploded on the scene as a dynamic 4, who's kind of a 3 type of player. Not to mention, you got a good 3-point shooter in Josh Hart. You got a great defender in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And then you've got, you just drafted Sviatoslav Mikhailik from Kansas. I'm just not even going to pretend I got anything close to that right. Who's a deft shooter and a long, lengthy guy. So you got, so much youth, and it's a very intriguing, youth setup here. But where does LeBron even fit? Because first of all, who do they have that's an actual post player to anchor things down low? Well, they go after JaVale McGee. Okay, that's fine. I'm glad that JaVale McGee, he has championship pedigree at this point. He's established himself as a guy, as a veteran who can, he could be an efficient, effective defender and rebounder, alley-oop finisher, which is a very important position these days. Tyson Chandler really created the position when he won a title with the Mavericks. And right now you've got Clint Capella, who's probably the best at it in the league and is demanding, this massive contract because of that. JaVale McGee is a step below where any of those guys are, but he's still there. But outside of him, I mean, Ingram's not a post player. Brandon Ingram, is a true wing. And not only that, Brandon Ingram weighs 20 pounds less than I do. And he's 7 inches taller than I am, and I'm not exactly what you'd call a fat guy either. But you got Michael Beasley coming back, the king of Chinese basketball. You've got Kyle Kuzma, who can be a little bit more of a post, but even then he's a bit of a stretch for. So you don't have anyone who's anchoring things unless they think that Ivica Zubac is going to be the guy that really pulls it together. They do have Moritz Wagner from Michigan/Germany. I do find him to be an intriguing true post, or he can stretch things out a bit, but a true post, the biggest thing they've got to a true post, at least with the LA Lakers. But LeBron James excels when he's kind of a point guard type of role, right? You want him to kind of lead the offense, and maybe he's trying to transition to playing off the ball more, which doesn't make much sense, but as he gets a little bit older, he does change his game a whole lot. And he's not going to be sprinting on the fast break the same sort of way. And he's developing more of a post game, which is nice. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe LA comes out there with a Lonzo at the 1, Josh Hart maybe at the 2. I would think Lonzo, Ingram, Kuz, LeBron, JaVale McGee are their starting lineup. I think you have to go that with what they've got right now. That's what, and then you have Lonzo and maybe LeBron alternating primary ball handling responsibilities. But what do you do with Kuzma? What do you do with Ingram in that situation? Because neither are good enough shooter to really be your main outside shooter. Neither of them are really good enough in the post to really be your 4, stretch 4, whatever. LeBron is your best bet to be an alternate point guard / kind of a stretch 4 type of position, to leave Kuzma and Ingram more so on the wings. Kuzma, I don't know, he's a very intriguing player to me because I feel like he could just about, if he keeps developing, he could just about do whatever you want him to do. He could be very, very, very interesting moving forward. Because he did, of course, average. What did he shoot? He shot about 37% from deep. That being said, you don't really think of Kyle Kuzma as being, I don't know, who you want as your primary shooter. I mean, looking at the statistics for the season, he did hit 159 three-pointers. out of 434, he shot 37%. It's good numbers. It's good numbers for sure. He definitely is, a stretch four type of player. But is that the lineup that does that work? That's going to be the most interesting thing is how does the Lakers lineup work? Because you're pretty much going to have to resign yourself to not starting either Ingram or Kuz in order to really have a lineup that fits. And more likely than not, you're going to see Lonzo, probably Josh Hart, as a catch-and-shoot 2 guard, LeBron at the 3, and then Kuzma, JaVale McGee. I mean, I guess you could also see no McGee and Kuzma and Ingram in there and have, what do they call that, the death lineup, no true post player. You could see that, but nothing about that lineup necessarily screams to me that they're ready to win a title right now. And LeBron James probably knows that. He's not trying to win a title with LA right now. He knows it's going to take time. This is not a Miami Big Three situation where he's walking in with 2 established dynamic players. That's not the case. They're not pulling in the free agents that they should have to really solidify. We've talked about all this, but let's take a look. I'm not going to beat the dead horse anymore on this sort of thing, but let's take a look at the Philadelphia 76ers, because this is a lineup that, I don't know, it kind of seems like it really would have made a whole lot of sense after watching especially Ben Simmons and LeBron play off of each other. Would have made a lot of sense for the two of them to get together. I mean, you got Simmons, who's a 6'10", Magic Johnson style point guard, can't shoot worth a lick, can jump much better than Magic, that's for sure. But can't shoot at all. You can't rely on him to necessarily have much of a, maybe more of a post game, but he's not going to be a perimeter guy. But he's got great vision, great creator, great handles, and can slash, get to the basket. I mean, there's a reason he, was so hyped. He's not like we talk about, oh man, he can't shoot. It's not like he, I don't know, doesn't ever score points, obviously. He averaged about 16 points a game last season. 16 points, 8.2 assists, 8.1 rebounds per game. You pair him with, you're going to have probably the starting lineup of Simmons. I don't know if they're going to keep JJ Redick as the as the primary 2 guard or who they're going to have. Most likely you think Markelle Fultz, because he's kind of an unknown still, is going to be a 2 guard there. But really you're going to see Ben and LeBron, who are very similar players in terms of what they like to do with the ball, playing off of each other quite a bit. And some people will look at that and say, I don't think that works, which makes sense. I'm not going to fault you for that. But I think there's something about getting 2 players that are kind of the same player to work off of each other well, because they understand what the other person's thinking. LeBron obviously is smart enough to know the tendencies of his teammates. You hear the stories about how he just kind of knew like what hand his teammates like to catch the ball in when they're getting ready to catch and shoot. So if he could just, remember those things, that's impressive. Then he will know the tendencies that somebody like Ben Simmons plays with. So if you got Ben Simmons, I really like Dario Saric as a stretch 4 or as a tweener. He kind of reminds me of a Tony Kukoc type of player. Like you're going to put him in the post just because of his size. I mean, 6'10", about 225. You're going to put him in the post a lot, but he really can handle the ball quite well for being what he is. And then, of course, you got Joel Embiid, one of the most dynamic young big men in the league right now. Guy, 23 points a game and 11 rebounds, 8.7 defensive rebounds, 11 rebounds a game last season. I mean, Joel Embiid he's living up to the hype. So that's a little bit more established. Not to mention that Philly went to the playoffs and had a decent playoff showing last season as a very, very young roster. The core of that roster is really young. I mean, Simmons is only going into his, second actual year. Embiid is going into his third. Saric his third as well. Not to mention that we still don't really know what Markelle Fultz might be as a player, but if he becomes a guy that they know they can really depend on to be a perimeter shooter, for example, then that's huge. He only showed up in 14 games last season, so they don't know if he's going to be a key player for them moving forward or not, but it could also be a key trade piece. If they wanted to move him, they could, and they could get someone who fits, because there's lots of teams that would be very interested in the potential of Markelle Fultz. And, I mean, Philly just is very, very promising. And you look at the Lakers, you don't look at that lineup and necessarily think, oh yeah, that's super promising. I mean, you do, because there's a lot to like in Kyle Kuzma, in the way Brandon Ingram just shaped up, in the way that Lonzo Ball can direct an offense. There's a lot of potential there, but they're getting bogged down with some bad contracts. They're signing some veterans that haven't really proven that they are the type of veterans that they need in the lineup. I mean, there's a lot of, for every like promising move, there's a lot of question marks as well. And that's why if you look at just the actual like tactical lineup side of things, then Philly makes a lot more sense. They've got an established big man they can rely on in a half-court offense. They've got a stretch four in Saric. They've got a dynamic point guard / small forward in Ben Simmons, kind of do-it-all player, who could probably learn a lot from LeBron James, who was the previous do-it-all point forward player, in the NBA. You look at the two lineups, and if you look at who are you going to put on the court, it just would have made more sense to win if LeBron had gone to Philly. So clearly there's something about LeBron's thinking in which he does not at this point in time, and this is my theory, he does not at this point in time care nearly as much about winning as he did. He's 33 years old. He's transitioning into the end of his career. He would really like to play, and he said this, he'd really like to play long enough for his son to be in the league with him. And let's not ignore the fact that his son has a great opportunity when it comes to playing his high school ball in Los Angeles. So LeBron James moved to LA for his family's sake. LeBron James moved to LA not because he thinks that he's going to win titles there. If he wanted to win titles, he'd have a much better chance going to Philly, being the best team in the East, having an automatic path to the finals, and then challenging the Warriors, as opposed to most likely losing to the Warriors in the semifinals and not even making the finals. So there's lots of non-basketball reasons that are dictating LeBron James's career right now. And that's really the entire reason behind me recording all this, is that the more I thought about what he was doing, and the more I thought about where he is right now, the more it seems to me that he is in a place where basketball is not number one. Improving education, that's something he cares a lot about. Being an ambassador, I mean, to underprivileged youth, I mean, that's what he cares a lot about. And then, of course, taking care of his family, that's what he cares a lot about. And honestly, probably a lot of that is just LeBron James being smarter than the rest of us. All of us are so focused on his basketball. All of us are so focused on, oh, well, can he ever win enough titles to really end the debate of whether he's better than Jordan. We're also focused on these completely insignificant things that we miss the fact that he's not about that anymore. He's moved past it. His career is not dictated by that anymore, and that's admirable. Now, I could always be very, very wrong about this. Let's be honest. I most likely am. I don't know the man. I don't know his motivations, and there's a great chance that he's going to come out this season and be very upset that the Lakers aren't putting the pieces together to win him another couple of titles before he actually hangs it up. That's just as likely as him being okay with where he is as a professional, having proven he doesn't owe anybody anything, and he doesn't need to prove anything to anybody anymore. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what I see when I look at him right now. And I could very well be wrong, but I think that's kind of where he is. Agree or disagree with me, let me know. Tweet at me, of course. And if you're a college football fan, in particular fan of the Southeastern Conference, then be sure to tune in to Running Out the Clock, the SEC podcast made by a bunch of guys that really just don't care much for the SEC at all. ROTC is, of course, kind of the parent podcast of all the other podcasts that I do. And so be sure to follow me there at ROTC Sports on Twitter. I'm going to be live tweeting a lot of games this next weekend. And every weekend. We got predictions for the SEC every single week. We've got a whole bunch of dumb claims. That's how dumb I am. I can't pronounce dumb. A whole bunch of dumb claims to make, dumb jokes to make. It's really, really stupid. And you should subscribe and enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and cease this recording session right now to prepare for a weekend. loaded up with college football because it's a sport that's actually happening right now. And basketball, I need you back. I need you back so soon. Also, I just got Spider-Man on the PS4, so I'm about to play that for the next 48 hours straight. I'm your friend Joseph Craven. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on 40 Minutes of Hell.